What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and everything relating to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and we have a lot of Marvel news to talk about today that has happened over the past couple of days. Some of the biggest pieces of news being Jaden Smith, Will Smith's son, might have been cast to play Miles Morales in the MCU. It sure does seem that way based off of what Will Smith has said. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is going back for reshoots right before the movie is coming out. Hopefully this isn't that bad of news. And a producer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness has commented on the Illuminati, and this is kind of confusing to some people. So I'll break down what he said, what it means, and why you shouldn't actually panic that much. We'll break everything down in this video, and of course if you're new and you love Marvel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel videos. So let's first start with the big news that Jaden Smith could have been cast as Miles Morales in the MCU. Now, most people know Jaden Smith as Will Smith's son. Jaden has acted in several different projects, mostly known for The Karate Kid, acting with his father in The Pursuit of Happiness and After Earth, and he's been in other big movies like The Day the Earth Stood Still. So he does have a lot of acting experience. And a huge important factor about this is that he actually kind of fits the bill when it comes to playing Miles Morales. In fact, he's a pretty big fan cast from the Marvel audience. And as of right now, it kind of looks like he may have already been cast as Miles Morales. Let's take a look at what Will Smith had to say about an upcoming role that his son, Jaden Smith, is preparing for. In a recent interview with PopTime.Space, this is what Will Smith had to say about this role that his son is training for at the moment. He said, "My son is preparing himself physically and mentally to take the place of one of the characters who will make history for the first time in the saga of a movie that many already know and ask for." Now, a lot of people are really thinking that this is going to be a live-action version of Miles Morales, especially if you consider what Will Smith is saying, a character who is going to make history for the first time in the saga of a movie. So for the first time in history of a saga, that means this saga has already been going on for some time now. But his character is going to make history in the saga, meaning it's going to be very, very different. Now, of course, all the Spider-Man that we've had so far, live action, are Peter Parker. And of course, I'm talking about movies, not the shows like Japanese Spider-Man. So everyone we've had so far is Peter Parker, and everyone we've had so far is a white male. Coming in as the first Black and Puerto Rican Spider-Man, Miles Morales would certainly make history, especially on the big screen live action, where we haven't seen that yet. Of course, we've seen him in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and upcoming in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, but never live action. Plus, not to mention, we did just get a Miles Morales reference in Spider-Man No Way Home. Jamie Foxx's Electro says there's gotta be a black Spider-Man out there somewhere, in which Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man just nods and smiles. This is definitely an Easter egg for Miles Morales. And I do think Marvel would be pretty foolish to not at least start to introduce Miles Morales in the MCU for this final Spider-Man trilogy with Tom Holland. At least we assume it's Tom Holland's final trilogy. That is not confirmed though. But Spider-Man No Way Home set up Feast, the organization that Miles Morales volunteers at. Aunt May was obviously a huge part of that, so it would make sense that in the next Spider-Man films, Peter Parker would volunteer there as well in commemoration of Aunt May. So the pieces are there. And Will Smith says that his son is preparing mentally, but also physically. Now, obviously, the role of Miles Morales or any Spider-Man is going to be a physically demanding role, especially if you're somebody like Tom Holland who does do some of his own stunts. Obviously, he has a stunt team for the big ones, but Tom Holland had been doing gymnastics since he was a little kid. So it would make sense that the studio would want somebody like that for Miles Morales. Now, as far as the casting is concerned, I think it's okay. I typically trust Marvel Studios with their casting choices because they've hit the nail on the head every time so far. I'm not a huge Jaden Smith fan from the movies that he's been in, but a lot can happen over the years. And if he has been cast as Miles Morales, I'm certainly willing to give him a chance, and I'm definitely willing to trust Marvel Studios. But before we dive into Doctor Strange, let me know what you think about this casting choice down below, if he actually is indeed going to be Miles Morales and has been cast already. Now, moving on to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, one of the best scenes that we've seen so far in the trailer for Doctor Strange is that Illuminati scene. And now, one of the producers of the film has kind of opened up about that scene, and has kind of confirmed a suspicion that we've had for a long time now. In an interview with Empire magazine, producer Richie Palmer was asked about that mysterious voice in Multiverse of Madness. Empire says it's not so mysterious for those who have seen the X-Men movies, in which Richie Palmer replied with, "Are you sure you saw what you saw?" quoting the first X-Men movie. He then said, "There are infinite versions of these characters, and just because you may have heard something familiar doesn't mean it's someone you have seen before." And if he is telling the truth about this means that the Professor Xavier that we hear in this shot in the trailer isn't most likely the same Professor X that we saw in the original X-Men films or Logan. He is most likely a variant of Professor Xavier that we've never seen before.
We should tell him the truth.
Empire then told him it's thought that some of the biggest names in Hollywood might show up in some of these roles, speaking about the Illuminati. Then they ask, could we have some super secret, ultra high profile variants on our hands? In which the producer replied, "I would love to see Tony again, but some rumors are just rumors. I will say that I love the Illuminati, but if we ever introduce the Illuminati in the future, it might be more MCU driven and have some more ties to our characters in the MCU versus just replicating what's in the comics." Now, this is very clever wording because he's technically not admitting that that's the Illuminati we see in the trailer, but of course we know it is. It is literally a council of superheroes, and that is literally Professor Xavier's voice that we heard. But what he's basically stating here is that yes, indeed, this is a multiversal variant Illuminati, not an Illuminati made up of the main characters from our main timeline. And he's basically stating when that does happen in our main timeline in the MCU, it's not essentially going to be the original lineup from the comics. Now also, of course, the producer's not going to straight up come out and say, yes, Tony Stark is returning. He absolutely cannot do that. So of course he's going to play coy about it. So just because he said this doesn't mean that he's not showing up. Who will show up? Who knows, but I'm certainly very, very excited to see, and I'm very curious who you want to see appear in the Illuminati. And to top it all off, it looks like there are some more reshoots happening. Now, we've already had massive delays due to the pandemic, and a few more delays that have happened at the end of last year and early this year. We don't have the trailer for Thor: Love and Thunder yet, and it's getting really, really close, but we also know that the movie isn't finished yet. Reshoots are about to take place in a couple of weeks, and now apparently the same thing is happening with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. And this is coming from Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange himself.
Dick, look, not all of us can live in LA all the time.
Well,
okay.
neither can I, but I've been having a very nice time there doing reshoots with Doctor Strange. So.
Oh, is that what we've been doing? Oh, that's what
Yes,
got,
yes.
isn't it?
Now, keep in mind the premiere date for the movie has already been set, and the official release date for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness has been pushed back several times now. I know a lot of people have been messaging me and panicking about what Benedict said in this interview, but fortunately, I think we're way too close to the actual release date and the movie premiere for any type of rescheduling to happen. Just keep this in the back of your mind. Avengers Endgame and Infinity War weren't finished until right before the premiere. Basically, the studio is going to work nonstop until the movie basically comes out to make it the best that they can. So I'm really not thinking that we have to worry too much about these reshoots. If anything, it's actually a good thing. They're trying to make the movie better and get the scenes just right. So no need to panic, but let me know what you think about what the producer said about the Illuminati, and do you like this casting choice, Jaden Smith for Miles Morales, if this has indeed happened? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest news. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.